Welcome back to 100 Days of Making Comics. I am Gazbot, and today is day 98. We are really getting down to the wire now. It's been getting down to the wire, but like the wire was like this, and now the wire is like this, and the metaphor sort of falls apart. But anyway, I had a good productive day on the horror today, which is funny because I had kind of a not so productive day in a lot of other areas. I was trying to catch up on some housework, and I got the final page of Earthling to color, which I started but didn't finish, and just doing stuff all day. And it was one of those days where I was doing stuff all day, but it was almost like I was in slow motion, like stuff that should take me a half hour would take me an hour, that sort of thing. Oh, and then the toilet overflowed, which was fantastic. And the best part was I made it worse because luckily there were no, how shall I say, there was no brown, and there wasn't even really yellow. That's brown and yellow, that's the nice way to say that. It was mostly clear, still not very pleasant, but I went in the bathroom and there was like a puddle. I'm like, that's weird. Did I spill a water? Did I have the door open when I was taking a shower? Like, I'm looking, is there a leak? I don't really see anything, and it wasn't too bad. And I'm like, maybe the toilet overflowed, or when I flushed it, it leaked or something. Well, let me flush it. And as I was just in the middle of flushing, and I'm like, that was a bad idea, because what if it is the toilet? And sure enough, I'm like, oh no, and I'm like, I need a plunger, but the plunger was in the other bathroom. So then I ran to the other bathroom. By the time I came back, so much water, just like splash, splash, like little splashes, and the door connects to the office here, so I was worried about the rug getting wet, and so I immediately just took my towel and threw it to the floor, and I had like 5 towels on the floor, and I eventually cleaned it all up, and then I had to mop the floor, and it just was not fun. But that isn't even like what made my day slow. That was like kind of after my main work day, and I had dinner, and this just sort of happened. But regardless of my sort of weirdly unproductive day, despite doing stuff, after dinner, sat down to work on the horror, and I got a good chunk done. I put in about 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I sort of finished page 1 inks. Well, let me rephrase. I did finish page 1 inks. Page 1 is sort of finished, and the reason for that is because I'm going to be using grayscale in the comic, and I'm still not 100% locked down on exactly the exact style I'm going to do the grayscale in, and some of all the panels were done without worrying about what I did on the other ones. Some still kind of match, and it's not that big a deal, but some definitely need to be corrected. And the way I did this panel, I think I said in a previous video, I was sort of starting to approach it as almost a simulated zipatone or duo-shade, which for those of you that have never heard of that, it's before you could do like the kind of printing we have now that's with the computer color and the nice printing, and like kind of the reason for inkers originally was to make lines show up on printing. Now it's become more of an art form, and it's another step, and it's a way to break up the process, and there's more to it than that, but that's why it originally existed. Similarly, back when we had more primitive color and we had more primitive printing for grayscale, if you didn't have cross-hatching or something like that from an inker, the other way you could do it was there were stickers called zipatone, and there was paper called duo-shade. There were other methods too, but basically it would be printed out dots or lines or texture that would register as gray when printed, but they were black and white. And so you use an X-Acto knife and cut it and put it down, or in duo-shade it had like a special paper that would have double exposures with this chemical you'd paint on. And so I am trying to emulate that sort of feeling of a sort of imprecision and a sort of limited palette. Because otherwise, like I've done, grayscale kind of, for lack of a better term, paintings, and I end up having like 50 layers of all different shades, and I'm blending whatever, and like that's fun, but I don't want to be doing that on every page. So what I did with this panel specifically is I limited myself to 2 shades of gray. What I do is I do a layer of black and then lower the opacity to 25%. And I go ahead and do kind of like the big gray areas. Then I do the exact same thing, another black layer, 25%, and do sort of the extra, I want to say highlights, but it's actually like deeper shadows, darker shadows. And so it's only actually 2 layers, 2 shades, one on top of the other, and I use a pencil tool instead of the brush at 100% opacity, and that's sort of what I got here. And then, and then I allow myself a white layer too, but that kind of just simulates if I cut out some of the, you know, the zipatone. So it's not actually another shade, it's just that. I think some of the other panels I did 3 shades, whatever. If I could get it to just 2 shades, that would be ideal. If I have to do 3, whatever. But like I said, the inks are done. I'll go ahead and show you just that panel, the process from yesterday to today. So here's yesterday, here's today, colliding! And that's Calliope. So yeah, so that was a good chunk of the hours I put in. But not all of the 2 hours 15 minutes went to that, because then once I did that I had to kind of clean up the rest of the page and the gutters and stuff so it all holds together. And I'll throw up that completed page, which again, it looks pretty done, but I need to tweak the grays a little bit. But well, I'll throw up the whole page now. Why not? Here's page 1, fully inked, mostly grayed, of sort of final art for the horror A4. Whoosh! Cha-cha! So yeah, luckily I have a couple more days, so probably tomorrow my day will be finalizing that gray and making it uniform on the page, you know, and then going on from there. But I am glad that I made the decision to stop working on the roughs and get a final piece of art, because if I was watching this, it'd be more satisfying to see a piece of final art and a final page rather than just more roughs, like, oh, it's the end of it, well, here's another rough, you know. And not that I'm criticizing the people that do that, but I'm glad I made that decision for myself. So the other thing that's going on work-wise, personal work-wise, is I did decide to do March of Robots, which I didn't mention yesterday because when I did the video, I wasn't. And as it was processing and going, I was thinking, should I do it, should I not? And I was thinking how, like, I only have a few more days of 100 Days of Comics left, so like it might be hard to squeeze in a few days of both, but then it'll be smooth sailing, of course, until I go to Japan, in which case, who knows? And I kind of decided, well, I'm just going to do it until I go to Japan, and then see if I can do it in Japan, and if I can't, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. And hey, if that means I get 10 or 11 days of drawn robots, who's that going to hurt, you know? So, fine, I'm going to do it. What really solidified it is when I was kind of like waiting for things to process and kind of messing around while everything was going through YouTube last night, I realized I had started a drawing of a robot the other day, kind of thinking, oh, maybe I should do March of Robots. I don't know, I kind of feel like drawing a robot. So then I finished that drawing. I didn't post it until today, and then, well, I'll throw that up right here. It's kind of a big giant robot. Boom! So that was the first one, and then the second one, which I did today, it was weird because it was an idea I had to do for a long time. I wanted to draw this character. The character is Irona from Richie Rich, specifically the cartoon. I never read the comic, and I didn't even really watch the cartoon. I mean, I must have, because I remember this character, but I wasn't a fan of it. And I was very young where I barely remember the cartoon, but I really remember this robot made, which simultaneously was my favorite character because it was a robot when everything else was just about like some rich kid and his rich friends having problems that seemed weird. And it was one of those cartoons I think that was supposed to be funny, but as a kid I did not find funny, which was a lot of cartoons for me as a kid. I was definitely more a fan of action cartoons. But anyway, that was just probably why I liked the robot maid, because she was the action-y part and the robot-y part. But every now and then she'd get angry, and it would be like, her eyes would turn red, and she'd be like, Richie! And like kind of go out of control, and that would kind of scare me, to give you an idea how young I was. And so the picture I did is sort of her getting into that angry mode, you know, like with the red eyes and a little bit of steam. But it was hard to find a reference for her. I found a couple basic pictures, but I wanted like a good turnaround or some of the gadgets she used to turn into, like kind of Inspector Gadget style, but I couldn't really find much. But I did it in a style, I did it all digitally in Photoshop, but I did it in a style to kind of resemble an animation cell. And I was pretty happy with the result, and I will throw that up now. Richie! Okay, there's that. So, March of Robots, Robot a Day, every day for March, that's what that is. In case you're wondering, there's a hashtag you can follow. I think it's mainly an Instagram thing, but as is with all social media now, it permeates everywhere, and I reuse it all over for various things. I've become aware of 2 more people that have joined the ranks of the 100s, and as usual, if I'm missing somebody, I apologize and tell me, and I will rectify. But the 2 I've become aware of are Jerry Gonzalez, who put 1 video up at least already, and I'll put a link below, and Tim Sprague, who I don't think is doing YouTube at all, and I've only seen it on his personal Facebook page, so I'm reluctant to put a link up to that, but so I'll put his name below, and maybe you could find out, or maybe he could suggest where to point you to, but I don't know if he's blogging or what, but anyway, these two people are doing 100 Days of Making Comics, so welcome to them, wish them the best of luck, check them out if you feel like it, and whatever info I have for them will be below. Speaking of 100 Days of Making Comics and people involved, Kevin Cross is still selling his Monkey Mod t-shirt, link will be below. That also helps benefit Peter Palmiotti, who needs help with his house, and I have a couple eBay auctions below, including my Kikaida original piece, which is still on eBay, I think for a little less than a day, as well as sculpture and a couple other things from some of the other 100s. It's all below. Check it out. You might want to get a fun piece of art, you might want to help somebody out, you might want to get a shirt, you might want to just donate, whatever. The choice is yours, but choose wisely. The Carpenter's Cup. Because, anyway, that was a really vague Holy Grail. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail. That's, anyway. So, one other thing I wanted to show you. I'm just going to lean over here. The other day when I was out and about, I did buy a toy from that toy shop. And the toy was this awesome monstrosity. This is, I first knew this from Battletech, which is a FAFSA game, I believe. It was like a tabletop sort of role-playing strategy game in like the 80s and 90s. And I knew him as a Warhammer. And it's also been in some video games of Battletech, and Mech Warrior later was rebranded. But that is not what this is from. This is from the Robotech line. And Robotech, of course, is the anime that was brought over, and it was adapted from Macross and a couple other series in America, and the Veritech fighter that the main hero flew also became Jetfire and Transformers, and it's this, whether you love it or hate it, it's this big seminal thing in animation and anime and robot history. This was not a main character. This was barely anything. These were called like Battloids or Destroids, and you'd see them on top of the big ship, and they'd kind of shoot and be destroyed. They were not piloted, they were autonomous, they were not sentient, but I always thought it was a cool design, and I've seen little ones. I was vaguely aware that these existed. I'm not even sure what other ones exist, like what other models. But this one was in really nice shape, and it's big. I mean, it's like, I don't know, 8 inches tall, 6 inches tall. So it's going to look really nice in my case. The joints are tight, and I didn't have to pay that much for it. I think it was like 15 bucks. I have yet to check online to see if I got a good deal or not, but, if it turns out I could have got it for 10, whatever. I'm pretty happy with it. And he's got these little, they lift this up, missiles, pow, 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 pow. He's got lots of little cool features and stuff. So he's going to be fun. The other thing, which wasn't at the toy store, but when we were at Gilman watching Kepi and those guys play, we took a break and went down to Walgreens, and they've gotten a much better toy section at Walgreens now, where they actually have like exclusive Star Wars figures and like, Walking Dead figures and like real toys. And I found this, which is a Power Rangers Megaforce figure, which is now like 2 seasons old, but it's $1. Can you see that? $1. This is like an $8 figure or 12, or depending where you get it. But even on sale, I've never seen them. $1? $1, and it comes with a card. I was very happy with this. This is one of those things where I'm like mildly interested in the figure, but extremely interested in the figure for $1. I would have bought the whole series for $1 each. So that's my toy excitement news. That one just fell. He didn't break. He didn't break. So yeah, that's my report for today. Ended up being happy with my work on the horror. I did notice recently I got a few new subscribers, so welcome and thank you. And then I'm going to call it a day. And the day I'm going to call it is day 98. Can you believe it? And if it's day 98, well then that means 1, 2, 3. How many was that? 2.